Dairy farmers are welfare leeches. It's true. During World War I, our government needed lots of milk to supply to soldiers to help prevent malnutrition. They could get it packed into powdered milk, which was easier to ship than any other resources. And many farmers actually stopped farming crops and other animals and just focused solely on the dairy production because it was so lucrative for them during the war. Well, afterwards, this created a situation where there was a too big to fail, stop me if you heard that one before, industry that was counting on selling X amount of their product to continue being viable. So instead of following their sacred capitalism and going with what the market wanted, the government instead chose to prop up that industry and create subsidies. Starting in 1946, government policies were put in place, like the school lunch programs.
A nutritious lunch helps a child stay alert. It helps teenagers make that final spurt of growth that develops them into healthy grown-ups. It gives all youth the energy to keep up and grow up. And what better use for our cultural riches than the school lunch? The total food consumed in the school lunch program represents an ever-growing market for our farms and our food industry.
That made it mandatory for kids to have a glass of milk at every single school meal. This also in turn had an effect on the 4 food groups that were taught in school at the time.
Lunches are designed to be nutritious, attractive, and well-balanced. Type A, they're called. Meats and other foods rich in protein, a combination of fruits and vegetables, bread, butter, milk.
You wouldn't know it as the food pyramid now, which is also still corrupted by this. And they pushed heavy promotion of milk and cheese through ad campaigns.
Milk, it does.
Milk, it does the body.
Milk it does the body good. Pass it on.
How's that go?
Builds your bones so you can grow. Milk's got calcium, don't you know? It does.
So good for teeth, it makes you smile.
So good, it drives you wild.
Milk, it does the body good.
Pass it on. Milk it does. Yeah.
Milk, it does the body good.
Milk it does the body good.
Pass it on.
Children's cartoons.
I'll be taking that. Oh, that looks heavy. Can't you read?
That bus driver's taking all the creamy, delicious strawberry milk.
Thank you very much.
That bus driver looks familiar.
Hey, you fuzzy lumpkins.
But why the strawberry milk fuzzy? Why?
Because I need the calcium for strong bones. And it makes my fur pink.
Get a dye job.
And more. Even with this new campaign in place to support the farmers, they kept producing more and more because it was lucrative, so why not? And expanding their operations larger and larger. The government ended up with so much surplus, they had to begin sending it to schools, the military, other countries, and the poor of the United States. By the 1980s, during the Reagan era, the government was spending $2 billion plus a year to subsidize the dairy industry. And warehouses were bursting at the seams with cheese and other dairy products. That's $6.2 billion a year they were spending in the 80s, adjusted for inflation now in 2019. The Reagan administration, in their crackdown on government spending, said, no, and axed that right away. So, what's an industry to do in this system? Well, they hired lobbyists, of course, and had them go and lube up the politicians with some money. Through their lobbyists and other political pressure, they were able to get a program called the Dairy Checkoff started. In this scheme, dairy farmers pay into a pool of money that is used for advertising. What's the benefit of this, you may ask? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The USDA is the one in charge of this pool of money and the ad campaigns. That's right. The agency that's supposed to protect us as consumers and mandate government guidelines on what's okay to eat is advertising and pushing milk on people in multi-million-dollar ad campaigns for an entire industry. And as part of the dairy checkoff scheme, they agreed to automatically push through all ads and basically waive scientific consensus and nutritional requirements. The fees from this dairy checkoff pool of money also pays for awesome and super neat things like giving money to large chain restaurants like Taco Bell, McDonald's, Domino's, and others to create dairy-heavy menus and menu items, including increasing the amount of cheese used on pizzas by up to 40%. So what does this all mean? Well, this means the USDA, who's supposed to have our best interests as consumers, taxpayers, and a healthy populace in mind, doesn't. They're writing and promoting the dietary guidelines for over 300 million Americans in this country, And they're in bed with one of the largest animal ag industries and the restaurants connected to them, along with orchestrating the campaigns that advertise them. The dairy industry gives millions upon millions of dollars to politicians to vote their interests above our health and our taxpayer dollars. They are helping to funnel billions upon billions of dollars into this industry's pocket. And we get to pay for it. The Agricultural Agreement Marketing Act of 1937, that's a lot of words, authorized Federal Milk Marketing Orders, or FMMOs. That program, which ensures what dairy farmers produce, so no matter what, if they have losses or make too much, they still get paid for it, costs taxpayers, in 2012 alone, over $222 million in subsidies, or AKA welfare. This has resulted in more and more surpluses and many times milk just being dumped out. Right now, there's over 800 million pounds of cheese sitting in government storage and 272 million pounds of government butter sitting in storage every year as a result of these welfare programs for farmers. Without these subsidies, the dairy industry would collapse. It would be no more. And in fact, without these subsidies, it's estimated that a gallon of milk would be over $6. The dairy industry is dying, and these subsidies need to stop propping them up. This welfare that these farmers are on, and there's lots of dairy farms near me here in rural Pennsylvania, United States. A dairy farm not very far from here whatsoever. They have very expensive RVs. We're talking $500,000 RVs sitting or parked around back of their houses. And yes, they have more than one house. They have a whole family compound around the dairy farm. And these houses are mansions. They are nice. They have 20, 30 car garages at this place. And this has been true of most dairy farms I've seen in the area. They are wealthy, they have money, and it comes out of the pockets of taxpayers. These are the same people that would rant about food stamps, support Trump, and have problems with people getting food to feed their kids. We as taxpayers shouldn't be paying for higher incidences of heart disease, type 1 and type 2 diabetes, cancers, and many other health-related issues that are causing the obesity epidemic and other health-related epidemics in this country. It's time to end the welfare for this industry and these farmers and start giving that welfare to cows and their calves. Start caring about what happens to them and stop all of this. The jury is in, and plant-based vegan milk alternatives are on the rise, doubling 600% last year alone. And that trend's not going away. And these subsidies are.